By the time I was in seventh grade, the devil was making frequent visits. It would vary, but at least one a week or so. One of the ways that I protected myself and strengthened myself against the devil's attacks was by being in the presence of really good people. There were several people in my life who seemed exceptionally good to the point where I couldn't even imagine them doing anything wrong. One of these people was my grandma, Marge, a lovely Italian lady. She was my father's mother, a great cook, which I guess you have to be if you're going to be Italian. And she always had this loving way about her and the meals that she prepared and the way that she hugged us. And she was always quick to give us a buck or two if we got a nice report card. And she'd have us spend the night with her and my grandpa Elmer. And she was just such a lovely person. And someone else who comes to mind is Sister Marjorie. What a lovely teacher she was, fourth grade social studies. She was always preaching love and the positive messages that Jesus brought to the world, and carried herself in just such a kind and caring way. She led a group of nuns that lived in a house on the campus where our school, St. William's, was, as well as the parish. She led these group of nuns in collecting little bottles of Welch's grape juice, glass bottles at that time, with little white lids, and they drank the grape juice there at the convent and collected enough of these empty bottles to clean them out and fill them with holy water. And Sister Marjorie made sure that everyone in her class had this little bottle of what was Welch's grape juice filled with holy water should we ever need it. And that was something that certainly came in handy for me. I kept it by my bed. I dip my finger in there and do the sign of the cross with this blessed water that Sister Marjorie gave us. And I recall remembering or having this vision, if you will, that the nuns there in the convent were peeing purple for a good week or so, or several weeks, as they collected these bottles. And someone else who provided me protection because of her goodness was my seventh and eighth grade crush, girlfriend, first love, Marianne. Wow, she was something. First off, she was just so kind and nice. Everyone in class liked her. Everyone. And she wasn't particularly meek. She wasn't a wallflower, but she also wasn't on the other end of the spectrum, loud and boisterous. Just kind of middle of the road, but always carried herself with a certain kindness and openness. She was very cute, just a little shorter than I was at the time, so I'm guessing about 5'7", 5'8", beautiful brownish, light brown hair, green eyes, terrific smile, and she did really well in school. We were put in 4 different groups, 1 through 4. The smartest kids were in the first group. The kids that weren't as smart, at least book smart, were in group 4. And Marianne was in group 1, as was I. And so I think that added to my attraction to her and my sense that she was someone really special and good. And the fact that I liked her and she liked me sent a message to Satan that there was goodness in me too, and that if Mary Ann liked me and considered me her boyfriend, there was a seal of approval, not only from Mary Ann but from God, because she was good, and I wanted to be with her. I remember in the summer leading up to seventh grade, I saw her at this pool where we both had family passes to a swim club called Phillips Swim Club. And just one day I turned around and there she was. She was in a yellow bikini. She was tan. And I had like this out of body experience, this most beautiful girl. And I knew it was her, but yet she felt somehow different, looked different. I was completely and utterly smitten. I couldn't speak. She just sort of walked by and I just stared at her. And if there's a point in my life where I feel like I could mark it as my coming of age, this is when my world shifted, because as a heterosexual, I kind of officially noticed the opposite sex in a way and to a degree I never had before. And she rocked my world. And from that day on, it was a new world. And I had also come some distance because back in about fourth or fifth grade, Mary Ann and her good friend Laura were Girl Scouts. And every Tuesday afternoon after school, they would walk from school to a home where their Girl Scout leader lived, to meet up with the other Girl Scouts and do whatever Girl Scouts do at these meetings. Well, it just so happened that their path went by a friend of mine's house, Scott. And so Scott and I would kind of race home in time to fill water balloons, and then we'd hide in the bushes, knowing that Mary Ann and Laura would be coming by, and we'd pummel them with these water balloons. Because at that point in our lives, that's how we expressed our affection to girls, right? So we pummeled them with balloons. They would report us to the teacher the next day, and then the teacher would call us out into the hall and tell us to behave and give us some little extra assignment to do. And so that happened 4 or 5 times throughout the school year, despite these warnings. But now I was old enough to communicate my interest in Mary Ann in different ways and somewhat more mature ways. And so 7th grade was a turning point, and I just knew that spending time with her and having her like me was good for me, was good for my soul, and would help me to punch back at Satan and hopefully slow his visits down, if not stop them. And in the spring of 7th grade at our school, it was the 7th grade that sort of led a major event, annual event every year at the church called May Crowning. And this was basically a mass that culminates in the literal crowning of a statue of the Virgin Mary. And someone was selected every year from the 7th grade class. It was always a woman, a girl, to do this. And the class voted on who they felt was the best person to do this. And certainly not to my surprise, I don't think to anyone's surprise, Mary Ann was selected to be the May Queen. And that meant all the more benefit for me, spiritual benefit. It confirmed for me that Marianne lived a level or two up from just about everyone. She was almost otherworldly, saintly, maybe even angelic. And all that was good for me. And this is a major event. The whole church is packed with the entire school, plus a lot of parents and community members come in. And there's a lot of fanfare, and Mary Ann and her court come in and up the aisle, and then she's positioned behind the statue, and at the right moment, as the Ave Maria is playing, she steps up this ladder with a crown of fresh flowers. The music is bouncing all over the walls in this cathedral-like church. The organ is going nuts. The choir is going nuts. All eyes are on her as she puts the crown on the statue of Mary. And in that moment, I just couldn't have been happier for her and for me and for God and the Virgin Mary. It was all coming together. Satan wasn't going to like this. Satan did not like the fact that I was this close to someone so special. It had to make a difference. But it didn't. The devil continued to come, and Mary Ann's May Queen status didn't put an end to Satan. But I told myself, well, maybe it still had an impact. Maybe Satan wasn't coming around as much as he otherwise would. I just knew that having Mary Ann in my life had to be helping. So things would have been worse if she wasn't in my life. At the end of second grade, as sort of a celebration for the end of the school year, the class took a trip to a local amusement park called La Swordsville. And this is kind of a low-grade amusement park. It had one kind of mid-size wooden coaster, but it's kind of more carnival or fair-esque. But it also had a haunted house. And you get into these little cars for two, and you go through the haunted house. And so my friend, another friend, Dave, and I had been thinking and fantasizing about how can we get inside the dark haunted house with our girlfriends and make out or otherwise do something fun and enjoyable. And so the day comes and we're there, and we had kind of planned that we wouldn't suggest going to the haunted house first thing, right? Like let's warm up, let's hang out with our girlfriends, let's buy them some cotton candy, let's just kind of build up to this thing. And so that's what we did, but even more slowly than we had planned, as the day was nearing its end and we hadn't gone into the haunted house. So finally, I believe it was Dave who brought it up to Mary Ann and to Laura, like, hey, let's do this. And they were game. And Dave and I had our plan that, okay, once inside, the door shut, it's dark, we can make our moves and start kissing these girls. Well, I got in there with Mary Ann, and oh boy, I didn't know what to do. I kind of wanted to kiss her, but also was like, not sure that's appropriate, and felt like, well, maybe that's what Satan, would want me to do. I had this notion that God wanted me to pray, but Satan wanted me to make out with girls. God can't win them all, right? So I put my arm around her as we enter the haunted house, and it's dark as can be. and I can barely see her. I don't know what to do, but once I got my arm around her, I just kind of froze, couldn't move, couldn't do anything else, couldn't even turn my head towards her. I don't know if she was looking at me. I don't know if she was attempting to kiss me. I just froze. And I learned later, once I got out and Dave and Laura were in the car in front of us, that pretty much the same thing happened to him too. No progress was made in our attempts to really kiss a girl for the first time. And then we move into 8th grade, the final year at this elementary school, before we go off to high school. And most of the boys were going to one school, all boys school called Archbishop Elder. And then most of the girls were going to an all girls school called, named after the St. Elizabeth Seton. It just so happens that these two high schools, all boys, all girls, literally sit next to each other. There's like one thin little road that separates the two. But 8th grade, culminating year at St. William's, and it was for me an opportunity to try to keep Marianne interested in me. And part of that meant that I had to demonstrate to her that I was worthy of her love and hopefully affection at some point. And so I did what I could to kind of show off, if you will, to her. And one way that I did that was through my running. I was relatively successful in cross country and track. Our school did not have a team. I was a team of one. And every week they would make announcements about the football and basketball and baseball team every week, typically on a Monday coming off the weekend at school. And all these other guys were getting praise for, winning this game, winning that game, this tournament, that tournament. And I was frustrated because I was doing well at some of these cross country and track meets, but I wasn't getting any attention because I didn't have a coach or fellow teammates to kind of spread the word. So I figured I had to take it into my own hands. And so when spring rolled around, I started bringing notes to the main office to give to the principal to ensure that my victories at these various track meets were shared with the whole school, though there was really only one person that I wanted and needed to hear that, and that was Marianne. And we wrote letters frequently, and still have a bunch of these. And in this particular letter, she talks about the 8th grade talent show. The tradition at this school, every year 8th graders get together, and as a group they sing a few songs, and then there are different performances. People will do solo performances or group up with others, and they may sing other songs or reenact portions of famous plays and movies, etc. And Marianne was singing some Disney songs with some other girls, and they were all wearing Mickey Mouse ears. And in this letter, I must have complimented her on that, because she says, "Thanks for the cute compliment, but there probably aren't Mickey Mouse ears big enough to fit my large head," she said. I don't remember her head being large, though her brain certainly was. And she signed off her letter with a WBP, here, if you can see that, "Write back, please," of course, which was always nice. And then something particularly interesting about this letter, she says at the bottom, "P.S. Sorry about the poor sentence structure." And there is a young woman with an attention to detail and wanting to get things right, which spoke also to her goodness and the fact that she had to be an irritant to Satan, that she would be worried about sentence structure. Also telling in this particular letter is that she said she prayed 10 Hail Marys today. Definitely a wonderful and blessed person. Satan still kept coming, but I think she was helping me nonetheless. Well, back to the talent show. This was an opportunity for me to show off in front of her. And I hooked up with my friend Dave, and we came up with an act, and we called ourselves the Kazoo Brothers. I still actually have the actual kazoo that I used for this performance. And so between acts, Dave and I, as the Kazoo Brothers, would pop up on stage, play the kazoo for a few seconds, and then tell some really silly and kind of lame jokes. I remember one of them, which he posed the question to me, did you hear about the one-armed fisherman? And I said, no. And he said, oh, he caught a fish this big. In another case, he asked me if I would like some smart juice. And I said, oh, of course. So he hands me a cup. I drink some of it and spit it out and say, hey, this is vinegar. And he said, you're getting smarter. So it was jokes like that. Well, it just so happened that there was a rehearsal in the afternoon where we eighth graders put on this show, these performances, which we had been practicing for several weeks or more, to all the other students in the school. This was to warm up for that evening's performance in front of the parents. Well, our act did not go well. We heard very little, almost no laughter, as if the jokes just didn't land at all. We were crushed, and we were telling our music director, music teacher, and other teachers in our grade that we're out. We can't do this. It was humiliating. And we were told, no, you have to do this. You're funny as can be. These kids just are too dumb to appreciate your brilliant humor, and you're going to be a big hit tonight. So they convinced us to hang in there, and indeed that night we performed our lame jokes, and we were a hit. The parents laughed their heads off. Dave and I just couldn't have felt any better, and I knew that I had scored some points with Marianne, that I impressed her just as I had with my running. This was going to keep her on my side, and I would accrue the spiritual benefits of her purity and goodness. The eighth grade ended with our graduation and a graduation mass. We're all there, and our parents, big deal. And then the highlight of the year was a dance that evening in the basement of the church, the Undercroft. And this is something we'd all been anticipating, and was going to be, for me and for many of my male classmates, the chance to dance with a girl for the first time. And I was very excited about this and couldn't wait for this experience. And on the actual day of the dance, it was late in the afternoon, and I was starting to panic because I didn't know how to dance, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, I had seen in the movies and on television, some like fancy ballroom dancing with these big gowns and all kinds of moves that may be required. And I'm like, oh, is this what's going to happen? How do I get ready to do this? And so I broke down. My mom was ironing in our dining room area in this small home, two-family home that we lived in. My grandparents lived in the home, the apartment below us, and I asked her for a lesson. And I knew I was taking a risk because my mom liked to tease me about girls and joke, and she was someone who liked a good laugh. But it was worth the risk because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing for this big opportunity with Marianne. So I asked Mom. She puts down her iron. She was already listening to some music. I'm pretty sure it was Carole King's Tapestry album, which had come out a number of years before, but was a favorite of my mom's. So anyway, she says, sure, and she says, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to put your arms on Marianne about here. And so she put my hands on her waist. And then she said, Marianne's going to put her arms around your neck, like this. And I said, okay. And you kind of stand like this. She goes, okay, now just move to the beat, move here a little bit. Don't want to go too nuts, but, kind of move. And as you're going back and forth, you may also kind of move around a little bit. Like, okay, all right. And then I'm starting to get the hang of it. We're just 5-10 seconds in at this. My mom blows in my ear, and it just kind of grossed me out. And I'm like, and that was the end of that. There would be no more dance lessons from Mom. And at that point in my life too, I think I decided I wouldn't go to Mom for advice of just about any sort at that point. And so went to the dance after our graduation ceremony and mass, and got to dance with Marianne for the first time. And I was I couldn't have been happier, and I could still smell her perfume and her hair, and I could feel that the goodness kind of coming from her, and I was absorbing it and knowing that Satan wasn't happy, but that Jesus was, that God was, and that this was a good thing. There were too many teachers and a few of our parish nuns around, so we didn't really even see this as an opportunity to try to kiss or make out with anyone. But that opportunity was coming soon, as there was a dance at another parish for anyone who had graduated from 8th grade or older to attend and participate. And that was going to be my chance. And so I went to the dance. Marianne was there. We danced a couple of times. Then all of us group danced some of the faster songs. We're having a good time. And then the band takes the break. And Marianne, this is about halfway through the evening, Marianne and I are just kind of standing around, kind of sitting on a ledge, a wall that happened to be the front of a grotto, a little kind of religious display that just so happened to have the Virgin Mary in it. We're like, wow, this is perfect. And so we're just kind of sitting there, and I asked my husband, hey, what do you want to do? And the next thing I know, we're making out. We're making out, and I can barely believe it. I'm doing it. I'm loving it. But I'm also like, what the hell is going on? It was such a momentous night for me that I actually kept, by design, the shirt I was wearing when I had my first makeout session. And it doesn't quite fit, but I'm happy to say it's not too horribly tight. And I thought, oh, this lucky shirt. I never want to forget this moment. I never want to forget this night. And I never have, in part because I still have this shirt. The devil kept coming. He had been coming. He hadn't really slowed down, but it would have been worse. It would have been worse if it weren't for Marianne. But about 2 weeks later, a change occurred. I fell to temptation, and it was the end of me and Marianne. I was with my best friend JC, a neighbor, a girl of our age who went to a different school, happened to have a friend over, and we started hanging out that night and chatting, and it was summer and warm and lovely, and so was this girl, and the next thing I know, we're making out, and I knew I shouldn't have been. I knew I wasn't doing the wrong thing. I knew that I would pay for this. I knew that Satan was applauding in hell, that I was doing what he wanted me to do, which is mistreat Marianne, the angel. And I was dumb enough to have made out with this other girl on a porch at night with the lights on. So I was seen by one of Marianne's friends, who reported me and narked on me. And the next day, Marianne broke up with me. And I knew Satan was happy, and that this wasn't going to be good for me. And it wasn't, as time would tell. Yeah, Marianne. It was good while it lasted.